All right. I am so happy to be here, so excited, especially on today, Constitution Day. This summer, I had the chance to read a book called Madison's Gifts. It's about James Madison and the relationship that he had with several prominent figures in history. And it's remarkable because I think history, we look at it, hindsight is 2020. It's really easy to think the Constitution was natural, it was just going to happen. But as I read about the relationships between James Madison with Alexander Hamilton, James Monroe, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, things were not looking good. Preceding the Constitution with the Articles of Confederation, the states were not united. And as I read that book, it just reaffirmed to me that this Constitution really was divinely inspired. I'm so grateful for these men. So like Kimberly said, my name's Kyla Jackson. I'm 23 years old, originally from Washington, D.C., but right now I'm living in Provo, Utah, about an hour and a half south from here. It's my senior year, really excited to graduate next April. And today I'm here to just tell a little bit of my story, who I am, and some of the traditions that my family had growing up. So first, I want to introduce you. This is my family. I love them. This was on the day that I got married. So this is Jake. We've actually known each other our entire lives. Our families, really good family friends. My dad was actually baptized into our faith by his dad. And so we did holidays, vacations together, so our parents are thrilled that we were able to get together. My parents are on the right. They've been married for 25 years. They're incredible. I love them so much. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're watching the live stream right now. Hi, Mom and Dad. So there's 5 of us, 5 siblings, or 4, including me. I'm the oldest, and then on the far left is Frank. He's 20 years old. He lives in New Orleans, Louisiana. He's actually a rookie in the NBA. Plays basketball. This is his first year playing. We're really excited to see what he can do. After Frank is Mary Alice. She's 18 years old, a freshman at the University of Utah, my rival, studying English. And then there are 2 living at home. There's Alvin on the right. He's 15, a freshman in high school. And then the youngest is Marie. She's 11 years old. She's our premier crafter. Her motto is, "Crafting is life." So this is my family. I love them. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And early on in the establishment of our family, it was really important to my parents that we had certain traditions and certain routines. And one of those routines that sticks out to me the most, probably because we did it every single day, was family devotional. Every morning we would get up, and before school would start, we'd gather together as a family. And we'd sit and be an opportunity for us to study scripture, to learn together, and to pray together as a family, start our days on the right foot. Sorry, these are my clickers are on the left here. So we did devotional for as long as I can remember. This was back when it was just Franklin and I, the good old days, less chaos. But back then, family devotional really just consisted of us sitting at this little plastic table, and we would read, or not even read, my mom would show us pictures of scripture stories. We'd talk about them, put them on our wall, and then we'd talk about qualities or characteristics of being a good person. What did that look like? Qualities like honesty, integrity, thrift. So that was our devotional for a long time. And as we got older, our family devotional was evolving. We would read scripture still. We'd talk about the standards that we have in our faith and the things that we lived as a family. And then as I started getting into high school, my parents started to teach us something that I call, or really my dad calls, the gospel of freedom. My parents were starting to become more and more educated about the Constitution, about looking at the Constitution from the viewpoint of our founding fathers. And as they were learning about these correct principles and teaching them out in the community, eventually it just became natural that they would teach us in our family devotional. So every morning we would talk about an article from the Constitution or an amendment. We'd often talk about current events, what was going on in our nation, and was that aligning with what the founders had taught and what they had intended for our nation. One of the things that often stuck out to me was when we talked about stories from our founding fathers, particularly one revolving this painting. So we had this painting in our living room, and I swear I think it was once a week my mom would point to this painting and she'd say, "Okay, children, remember George Washington. Think of George Washington. After serving in the Revolutionary War, he was tired. He wanted to go home. He wanted to be at Mount Vernon. This is a picture of his home. It's in a beautiful estate right along the Potomac. He wanted to be home with his family on his land. The last thing he wanted to do was spend 8 years serving as president of the United States. But he knew that he had an obligation and a duty to serve his country, and so he did it. And so kids, just think of George Washington. There's going to be points in your life where you're going to do things that are hard, things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you will have an obligation and a duty to serve your God, serve your community, serve those around you. And think of George Washington, because the choice that he made to leave and serve our nation at such a fragile time was crucial and was pivotal. It shaped and made all the difference. So she would tell this beautiful story, right? And I feel so bad, but I would sit there and I'd roll my eyes. What time is it? I need to get ready for school. Frank would be asleep on the couch. The 3 youngers are looking oblivious, and I'm pretty sure my parents would often look at us and be like, really? This is it? Like, come on, guys, be a little more excited. But I just was not into it. It's like, this is great, this is a nice story, but it doesn't really have a lot to do with me. But my parents, they knew it was important. And that's why they got us up every morning, sometimes as early as 6 a.m, to read and study scripture and to talk about liberty. They wanted us to learn in the home to love God and to love America. And I didn't realize how impactful that was until I left home and I went and had some of my own experiences. When I was 19 years old, I decided that I wanted to volunteer to be a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you don't get to choose where you go, but naturally I just thought, I'm from the big city. They're going to send me to a big city. I'm going to go to London or New York City or Boston or Atlanta, somewhere that fits with me and my personality. So you can imagine my surprise when I open my mission call and I read the words Iquitos, Peru. In fact, I didn't even pronounce Iquitos right. Iquito, Peru. I was like, where on earth is that? And I look it up on the map and I see it's in the Amazon jungle. It's like the complete opposite of what I wanted. And so I knew that God wanted me to go on a mission, and I knew that this was the right thing to do. So I packed my bags, I got on the plane, and I served my mission in the Amazon jungle. And do not let the smiles deceive you, it was miserable. It was such a hard experience. I got there the first couple months. First of all, I'm learning Spanish. They teach you for 6 weeks in the training center. No idea what people are saying to me. The conditions of poverty were just tremendous. I would teach people in homes that were made out of cardboard, scraps of wood, people, broken homes, teenage pregnancy was rampant. It was really, really hot, and when it got hot, you could smell the trash. There was no such thing as a garbage can. And when it wasn't hot, it was super rainy, and it was muddy, and I hated it. I was there for a couple of months, and after a couple of months, I was done. I'm like, I can't do this. I fought the good fight. I've done what I needed to, but I just want to go home. And one morning, I was studying my scriptures, and I was thinking about my family. They were miles away from me, and I knew that they were having family devotional probably right around the same time. And guess what I remembered? That painting of Mount Vernon. That George Washington did something that was hard, that he didn't want to do, but he did it anyways. And maybe I wasn't shaping the course of a nation, but I was shaping my own life. And so I recommitted that I was going to do this. I was going to do it well. And even if it was miserable, I was going to do it with a smile on my face. And so I kept going. Every single day was hard. After 10 months, I was done. I was tired again. We were at the chapel. It was muddy, rainy, wet. We were waiting for an investigator to come and teach them about the gospel. They didn't show up. I went to the bathroom, and I got into one of the stalls. It was muddy, wet, everywhere, smelled like urine. Got on my knees, and I prayed again. Father in heaven, help me do this. I can do this. Help me to do it well. And I got up from my knees, and guess who I thought of again? George Washington. I thought of George Washington. I thought of Thomas Jefferson in 1776. He didn't want to go and serve in the Continental Congress. His mother had just passed away. His son had passed away. He wanted to be at home at Monticello. But he knew that he needed to go. He needed to go and be a part of the Congress. And we're so grateful that he did, because he wrote the Declaration of Independence during that time. And so I chose to stay the course because these men chose to stay the course. I finished my mission. I finished honorably. I came home. 2 days after I came home, I ran into Jake, my childhood friend who I hadn't seen in several years, who I had had no romantic connection with, but all of a sudden things had changed. We did long distance. I went to the Middle East for the summer. I went to Jerusalem, and almost a year after I came home from what I thought was the most miserable experience of my life, I had the best day of my life. And as I sat there in the temple, getting ready to marry my sweetheart, I felt in my heart that the sacrifice that I had made to serve a mission was good, that the time was right, the timing was right. And it was from these devotionals that we would have as a family that really instilled in my heart this love of liberty, this love of doing the things that were hard. As I continue to go through my life, this love is what permeates everything that I do. Just this past summer, I got to live in Washington, D.C. again. I was an intern at the Museum of African American History and Culture. It's a part of my heritage. I descend from a line of slaves. So it was fascinating to work at this museum. And while I worked there, I got to live at home. And guess what we were doing? Family devotional. Every single day we had family devotional. This time it was in the evening, thank goodness, not in the morning. But instead of dreading it and not really caring about it, I looked forward to going to family devotional because I knew of how important it was, how foundational it had been for my life, for my testimony of God, for my testimony of this nation, of the men and women that built this nation. And even in my own little home now, just yesterday, I took this picture. We had dinner, and after we had dinner, so Jake's brothers are on the left, my sister and her friend, a friend from our ward, and then there's Jake. We sat and we had dinner, and after dinner, guess what we had? Family devotional, because that's how important it is to me, that we have an opportunity to talk about things that are spiritual, have an opportunity to talk about things that are important, about serving in our community. I know that I have a long way to go. I have a lot of life to live, probably insignificant compared to the billions of people that live on this earth. But I look to the founding fathers as a source of inspiration. Their lives are an example to me. And I'm incredibly grateful for my parents, that they had the foresight and the discipline to get us up every single morning, to be able to sit us down and to talk about these things. Because even if I don't remember all of the details, I remember that we did do it, that we did gather. And it's caused this love that has helped me want to learn more and to be a leader for this generation. And so this is my story. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to have been here. I know that the Lord is on our side. And that's it. Thank you.